Hello, I'm Evely and I will tell you one story. Let's go. On a night when the stars hid their light behind swirling, oppressive clouds, Metropolis lay cloaked in an unsettling silence. Once a city of hope and promise, its avenues and high-rises now appeared as gaunt silhouettes against a backdrop of creeping decay. Superman, the beacon of justice and strength, soared above this desolation with a heavy heart. His cape, normally a bold statement of defiance, fluttered listlessly as if mourning a forgotten past. Tonight, even his mighty resolve seemed to falter beneath an invisible, malignant force that eroded the very fabric of his reality. As he glided over the crumbling metropolis, an inexplicable dread seeped into his bones. The air was thick with whispers, a chorus of murmurs that carried the lament of lost souls and the echoes of broken dreams. Every gust of wind seemed to breathe secrets of betrayal and impending doom. Former landmarks, symbols of progress and hope, were now nothing more than skeletal remains. The bustling streets were deserted, save for fleeting shadows that slithered into narrow alleys, vanishing as though swallowed by the night. Drawn inexorably toward the heart of this eerie urban graveyard, Superman's supersensitive perception detected a tear in reality itself, a distortion in the natural order that defied logic. It was as if an ancient, malevolent presence had seeped into the seams of time, transforming the familiar into a grotesque parody of what once was. The comforting hum of life was replaced by a dissonant symphony. Distant, discordant sirens, the creaking lament of bending metal, and an ominous, rhythmic drumming that resonated deep within his core. Hovering over a derelict skyscraper whose once proud facade was now overtaken by creeping vines and lichen-like decay, Superman landed with measured caution. Beneath him, the street revealed macabre scenes. Figures clad in tattered remnants of everyday attire moved with an unnatural, jerky gait. Their eyes were hollow, void of the spark of life, as if each were a puppet animated by some cursed force. In moments of fleeting clarity, some of these spectral silhouettes extended groping hands toward him, a desperate, silent plea or perhaps a warning of horrors yet to come. Then, piercing through the oppressive quiet, a blood-curdling scream shattered the night. The sound did not belong to any one person. It was a collective cry, a piercing, anguished note that seemed to vibrate from the very soul of the darkness. Superman's heightened senses honed in on the source, and for an interminable moment, time itself appeared to stretch, warping the edges of his perception. An unseen pull urged him toward an abandoned district where architecture twisted into impossible angles and narrow corridors led to dead ends. The familiar landmarks of Metropolis had become an elaborate maze of nightmare, each turn revealing another facet of terror. In the center of a desolate square, illuminated only by the sickly glow of a malfunctioning street lamp, he beheld a figure cloaked in tattered robes. The mysterious specter hovered silently, its face shrouded in shadow and its presence radiating an aura of malevolence so potent that even Superman's invulnerable form seemed to shudder. In a voice that resonated like a death knell across the void, the figure spoke in cryptic tones of destinies shattered and futures doomed, a prophecy that hinted at a betrayal so profound it cut to the very core of Superman's being. Before he could react, the apparition dissolved into a cascade of ethereal mist, leaving behind an echo of sorrow and malice that clung to the air. A sudden rush of disjointed memories overwhelmed him, visions of Krypton's tragic demise intermingled with distorted recollections of his own heroic past. These were not the noble memories he had long cherished, but warped, nightmarish fragments filled with despair. The distinction between past and present blurred as if the boundaries of time had been irrevocably torn apart. In the dim glow of that flickering lamp, he discovered a disturbing clue, a smear of a substance, dark and viscous as spilled ink, trailing along the pavement like a breadcrumb leading into deeper obscurity. Following this trail, Superman found himself in a narrow passageway where the very walls appeared to pulse with an unholy life. Each slow, deliberate beat echoed like the mournful heartbeat of a dying world. The oppressive atmosphere weighed down upon him, each step forward feeling as though he was treading deeper into a labyrinth designed to devour hope itself. The relentless drumming grew louder, syncing with the frantic rhythm of his pulse, a forewarning of the unspeakable horrors lying in wait. Steeling himself against the encroaching dread, he advanced toward an ominous structure that loomed like a specter among the ruins. Its grotesque architecture was a fusion of twisted metal and warped stone, an edifice that defied rational design. The massive door, carved with strange symbols that pulsed with an eerie green luminescence, beckoned him into its unfathomable depths. With a trembling hand, he reached for the cold, ancient surface, and the door creaked open with a sound that seemed to reverberate through both space and soul. Inside lay a corridor shrouded in darkness, its walls etched with bizarre, alien inscriptions that seemed to writhe and shift, when observed from the corner of one's eye. Flickering lights revealed fleeting shapes dancing along the edges of his vision. Shadows that moved with a deliberate, sinister intent. The corridor's silence was punctuated by soft, almost imperceptible whispers, as if the very stones murmured secrets of a cursed past. Every step deeper into the structure filled him with an ever-growing sense of dread. Here, in this forsaken place, the rules of reality unraveled like a threadbare tapestry. Beyond the corridor, the passage opened into a vast chamber. Here, the air was thick with the stench of decay, and the sound of that relentless drumming grew to a hypnotic cadence. In the center of the room, an enormous mirror stood, its surface marred by cracks that shimmered with an unearthly light. As Superman approached, the mirror's reflection revealed not the hero he knew, but a distorted, monstrous echo. A visage twisted in anguish and sorrow, as if it embodied every dark secret buried deep within him. The reflection's eyes burned with an eerie luminescence, and a voice, layered with the agony of 1,000 lost souls, spoke of destiny and doom. Before he could grasp the meaning behind these horrifying revelations, the chamber shuddered violently. A spectral force surged through the room, and the mirror splintered into shards that scattered like lethal confetti. The disembodied voices crescendoed into a cacophony of despair, and the very ground beneath him quaked with the promise of an approaching terror. In that overwhelming moment of dread, Superman stood at the precipice of a descent into darkness. A journey that would challenge every ounce of his strength, his spirit, and the hope he so desperately clung to. Then, as if in response to an unspoken summons, the ancient door behind him slammed shut with a resounding thud. The drumming, now a deafening roar in his ears, heralded the arrival of an unspeakable force. With his heart pounding a frantic tattoo, Superman braced himself for the battle ahead. A battle not just for the soul of Metropolis, but for his very identity. The corridor and chamber, alive with the pulse of malevolence, closed in around him, promising that the true horror was only just beginning. The heavy, oppressive silence that had claimed the chamber was shattered by the resounding echo of the door's final slam. In that moment, Superman felt the full force of a reality unmoored, a realm where every comforting certainty was eroded by an all-consuming dread. The corridor behind him receded into darkness, and ahead lay an expanse of shifting, nightmarish architecture that defied the laws of nature. The walls pulsed with an eerie luminescence, as though alive with a sinister heartbeat, and the ground beneath his feet trembled with the weight of unspeakable horrors yet to be unveiled. Stumbling forward, he found himself in a vast antechamber where the air was thick with decay and despair. The very fabric of the space vibrated with a malevolent energy, and shadows writhed along the walls like living tendrils. Before him, an enormous, shattered mosaic depicted fragments of his past. A montage of Krypton's lost glory, of battles fought and won, of hope shining like a beacon. Yet in this cursed reflection, every image was distorted into grotesque parodies. The familiar symbols of justice were twisted into scrawled sigils of torment, each shard of colored stone bleeding into the next, creating a tapestry of suffering that dripped with hopelessness. A spectral wind, cold and relentless, swept through the chamber. With each gust, the broken mosaic rattled and shifted, as if animated by some unseen puppeteer. Amidst the shifting chaos, a low, droning hum began to resonate, a sound that vibrated in Superman's very soul. It was the sound of sorrow and regret, a dirge for a hero who had been transformed into something unrecognizable. The droning grew into a maddening chorus of whispers. From the murk, disembodied voices emerged, taunting, accusing, mourning. "You have forsaken the light," they intoned in unison, each syllable dripping with venomous malice. "The darkness is your birthright." Compelled by an instinct both primal and heroic, Superman surged deeper into the labyrinth of nightmares. The corridor he traversed seemed endless, twisting and folding back upon itself as if mocking his every step. Each turn presented new terrors, hallways where time itself stuttered, rooms where gravity bent in unnatural angles, and spaces where every shadow seemed poised to leap forth and drag him into oblivion. His heightened senses were assailed by visions, flashes of past battles rendered in the stark hues of terror, faces of those he had once saved now contorted into masks of eternal agony. The hero's internal resolve faltered as he questioned whether these were phantasms conjured by his own mind or the real, malignant forces that now held dominion over this forsaken realm. In a narrow, suffocating corridor, he came face to face with a figure that sent a shiver down his spine. Emerging from a pool of inky darkness was a mirror image of himself, a doppelganger whose eyes burned with a feverish intensity, mirroring both hope and despair. This apparition spoke with a voice that was at once his own and something far more sinister, echoing through the chamber with a timbre that chilled the marrow in his bones. "You have become what you fought against," it hissed, each word laced with an accusation that pierced through the hero's indomitable spirit. The reflection's form wavered, its edges dissolving like smoke in a gust of wind, leaving behind a lingering question: was this confrontation merely a trick of a tormented mind, or the manifestation of a deeper, forgotten truth? As Superman pressed on, the floor beneath him shuddered violently. A deep fissure split the ground, a yawning chasm from which emanated a pulsating, sickly light. From its depths, tendrils of dark mist ascended, coiling around the hero's legs as if trying to anchor him to this realm of torment. Each tendril, cold and unyielding, carried the whispers of 1,000 lost souls. In their collective lament, he heard accusations of negligence and betrayal, as if the city he had sworn to protect now condemned him to bear its sins. The fissure widened, revealing a cavernous pit where unspeakable shapes writhed in the darkness, their forms shifting in a chaotic dance of decay and malice. The abyss beckoned, promising oblivion, a final, inescapable end to the heroic legacy he had fought so valiantly to preserve. Desperate for answers, Superman summoned every ounce of his strength and leaped across the gaping chasm, his powerful form soaring over the maelstrom of writhing shadows. But in that perilous moment, the droning chorus of voices crescendoed into a deafening roar. The air around him vibrated with an energy that threatened to tear him apart, both physically and spiritually. His eyes locked onto a distant, flickering light, a solitary beacon amidst the oppressive gloom. Drawn to it as if by destiny itself, he landed with a heavy thud near the source, only to find himself before a colossal, archaic door embedded in the rock face of the cavern. This door was unlike any he had ever encountered. Its surface was covered in cryptic runes that pulsed in time with the monstrous drumming. With each pulse, the symbols seemed to shift and rearrange, whispering secrets of ancient power and unspeakable curses. Superman's heart pounded as he reached out, placing his gloved hand upon the door's cool surface. In that instant, the runes ignited with a violent brilliance, bathing the cavern in an unearthly glow that made his skin crawl. A voice, deep and resonant as the roar of the cosmos, emerged from the door. "Enter and confront the truth of your soul," it intoned, each syllable heavy with the promise of both revelation and damnation. Torn between duty and dread, the man of steel hesitated. Every fiber of his being screamed that behind that door lay not salvation but the culmination of every fear he had ever harbored, the final reckoning with the darkness that had crept insidiously into his heart. Yet, in that moment of indecision, he recognized that the path of a hero was not merely to fight external evils, but also to confront the demons within. With a steely determination tempered by a trace of resignation, he pushed the door open. A surge of blinding light and bone-chilling cold enveloped him as he crossed the threshold. The world beyond was a nightmarish echo of all that he had known, a realm where time and memory unraveled, where every regret and every sacrifice manifested as tangible torment. As he staggered into this unholy domain, the ground beneath him crumbled away into swirling oblivion. The voices rose once more, a spectral choir that echoed with the lament of fallen hope, and the shadow of the hero he once was loomed large, a dark testament to a destiny forever marred by tragedy. In that harrowing moment, Superman realized that the true battle was not for the city above but for the salvation of his very soul. And as the nightmare deepened, the last vestiges of light seemed to flicker and fade, leaving him standing alone at the edge of an abyss from which there might be no return. Thank you very much and see you all in the next video.